Hello, everyone. Welcome to Content Culture. It's your girl, Tomi,
And I'm Nicole.
and we are back again. I am so excited to talk to you, Nicole, because when I tell you my mind is everywhere right now with all of the wonderful reality TV mess that's on right now this summer, I'm so excited.
I know. I started watching Love Island USA last week and it has delivered.
It truly has. But before we jump into that, of course, tell me about your weekend. How are you? Life?
Good. I am actually visiting a friend in Charlottesville right now. So I am like truly remote working, truly remote podcasting, not my normal setup, hoping our Wi Fi is going to hold out, all those
Ooh,
things.
we'll see. But you a businesswoman. Is this also like vacation for you, or are you just kind of like having a change of pace in terms of where you're working?
No, I'm still technically working. So I just
Gotcha.
like was like, you know what, work from anywhere. Let's do it. So yeah.
I love that for you. I feel like I'm need to get better about scheduling actual vacation and not just like, oh, I'm going to be out of town at said place and I'll work. So for my our birthday, haha, coming up, I'm trying to make sure that I section off that time beforehand so that I
That's
can truly be
awesome.
free from devices.
Yes, take that time off. Like PTO is PTO. Like this, I'm like, this is like a working, I'm still at work. So I'm like, this is
Mhm.
not time off to me, but you need to take that time off too.
Yeah, I was actually also visiting a friend this weekend. We went to Florida and she lives like outside of Pensacola. And for some reason, I was thinking, like, oh, outside of Pensacola, like, it's still kind of like city this. No, 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 no. It's like the middle of nowhere, bless. And I love her absolutely. But it was a lot for me. It's a little city girl.
Okay.
I felt like it was an episode of The Simple Life with all these like Trump flags and stuff everywhere. She herself is not. Let me get that out there. First of all, do not go thinking that, but let's just say very different area. But still loved hanging out with her. I was roommates with her in college. She was in my wedding. One of my closest friends. So it was nice to see her in the flesh because the last time was probably at my wedding 2 years ago. So
Oh, so fun. Now, did you guys get to go
mhm.
to the beach at all?
Yeah, we did. We went for one day, and it was like a trek to get out there because the Blue Angels were in town. And if you are not familiar, not the biker gang, apparently there's also a biker game that's called Blue Angels, but regardless, um, it was the whatever it's called, the planes,
Yes.
Navy planes.
Yes.
And so they were doing their huge show and they're from there. So like even more people were coming into town for that. So like to actually get to the beach was awful and parking was horrific. But once we got there and got to like the like local place, I was like, oh, I like this. And if I lived by a beach, this is exactly the type of place that I would go. That's like just kind of off the beaten path. Don't really care if you don't have like the cool restaurants and stuff by you as long as you can kind of essentially feel like you have a private beach for yourself.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
But it made me think like, could I live in Florida one day?
I don't think I could because multiple reasons, but the hurricanes are enough for me to say, like,
Yes.
I'm not trying to live hurricane ready every single day of my life.
I mean, she was pointing out stuff. She's like, oh, yeah, that's from Hurricane X. This is from Hurricane. I'm like, how do you keep up with all of them? And she's like, oh, it's just Florida things.
It's not for me.
Not for me either, but it's always lovely to visit. Um, I do have another question for you. Did you watch the Gossip Girl reboot?
I did not. I'm assuming you did, so tell me your thoughts because I've heard mixed reviews. I've heard mixed reviews.
Well, first of all, did you watch the original?
Yes, and I read the
Okay.
books. I'm a purist, so
So
I read the books, and then the first TV didn't give what it was supposed to. But yes, continue.
I read the books as well. I also read the follow-up series, The It Girl. Like I was in high school, middle school, that was my vibe was to find books about rich teenagers off at boarding school with, just too much freedom, doing drugs, living debauchery because I was living vicariously through them as someone who was in a very strict Christian household.
Okay, did you read
So,
the Click series?
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting so excited right now because this was all like on my bookshelf. I loved every single one of them.
Yes, that was my shit. Truly,
Um
a
so
moment.
of course when I heard the reboot was happening, I was very excited because, well, I mean, it was one of those cases where when reboots happen, it's a lot of pressure on the cast and the writers and stuff to kind of reinvent something, especially when it hasn't even really been that long since the last one went off the air. So I was very intrigued to see how they're kind of go with this new Gen Z, and I thought like because they're very much about the digital age that it would have been easier for them, and I was wrong. I don't think I hated it like some other people, but it was a very weird like direction that they decided to go. Like this is not a spoiler because it's like in the first 10 minutes of the episode. But basically they made Gossip Girl the teachers instead of like a student gossiping on other people. And it's basically because they're like trying to keep the students in line and like make them respect them because they have all this money and like the teachers don't last long there because you can just get fired and so's father is head of the board, whatever. And so they're like, oh, if there's someone like out here doing all these secret things, then it'll make them not feel as powerful and kind of like knock them down a peg. And so that's the approach that they kind of had with it.
Interesting choice.
Yeah. I don't know if it works. I just want to know like how long they'll keep that up. I truly feel like it can only last a season that way, and I feel like the season finale is going to be like, oh, all the teachers got caught, and then it's like they think that one of the teachers is still doing it, and all the teachers are like, no, it's not us, and then it's like, okay, so surprise, who is it now?
That would be an interesting twist.
Let's hope that that's the direction they go, because if not, I'm just like, why would you risk your not even just your current job, but your career over doing stuff like this?
Right. It doesn't seem realistic. It has that TV feel of where you're like, this wouldn't happen in reality, right?
Right. Especially because it's like there was one scene of a teacher taking a photo of like two people. They weren't hooking up, they were changing, but their backs were to each other, but they were taking their tops off. And I was like, oh, so you want to be distributing child porn, essentially?
Okay. Interesting
Yeah.
choice.
Real smart moves, real smart moves. So I like the diversity, of course, loving it, but they're trying to make it a little bit too woke. Some woke police Chris Harrison style. We like Gossip Girl and all this stuff because it's just like they're just rich people having fun. I wanted a teenage Succession, essentially.
Yes, absolutely.
So I would love
And
to know your
instead,
thoughts.
go ahead. I don't know. I think it's just when I think I need to actually watch it to know. I've heard mixed reviews. I've heard people say like they don't love this plot that it's the teachers. And then I don't know, I just feel like it's such a classic. It was so soon after like the initial series came out. It seemed kind of quick for a reboot to me. Like if you look at Sex and the City, like they're just coming out now. Not really with a reboot, but like a re-up. And I feel like they didn't give it any time to like breathe and age.
Yeah. Agreed. I also felt like in the original and with the books, there was like a core group of 4 or 5, and then they would introduce other people. And maybe I don't remember the pilot of Gossip Girl, like the original, but this one felt like there was way too many characters involved. So I was like, who am I supposed to be following? Like, who's really the head girl? Like all of this stuff, and it was really hard to kind of keep up with. So I don't know. It didn't give that same vibe of hierarchy and whatnot.
See, I'm not excited to watch it now.
No, but you should like have an open mind go into it, and I think that's what everyone's issue was. When I saw critiques, they did not have an open mind going into it. So
Okay. So go in expecting nothing and I'll be pleasantly surprised. Low expectations.
yes, because actually, I ended up watching the iCarly reboot. I don't know if it's called what is it called a reboot when it's like you're continuing the story and not necessarily like it's a new
I
show.
don't know. I'm like, is it a sequel? It's not really
I
a
don't know.
sequel. Okay, but I get what
Whatever
you're
the
talking about.
whatever the terminology is, I thought that was really good. My only downside is that I absolutely hate laugh tracks. I like cannot get into a show that has one, and I forgot obviously because it's one of those like teenage Nickelodeon Disney shows, and it's like after every 1-2 words they're gonna go like ooh ah like it's a little too much, and to still have that I was like this is hard for me to get into, but the writing is like very clever, so I would definitely suggest watching that if you want to do a little free trial because that's what we did with Amazon little things.
Yeah, heard it's like entertaining and a little bit more grown up, but like still feels like the original show. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is what I need.
Yeah, it's a little in between for me. Like I wouldn't go out of my way to like keep watching it because I only watched the first 3 episodes or so. Um, but it's nice. It's giving some things. It is, and in comparison, I think the time has finally come where Love Island USA is doing way better than Love Island UK this year.
I have not watched any of this new UK yet. I think it's like just starting to come onto Hulu for me. But I did watch
Yeah.
USA last week when it premiered. I think I'm like 2 days behind right now, but I've loved it. I thought it's been very entertaining. There's been one episode of USA so far that I was like, oh, this is kind of slow, but that's pretty normal when you're on like 4 to 5 days a week. So I like it.
Yeah. I love it. Again, with any type of shows like these, like it's all about your casting choices, people. And they did a very good job with their starting off cast. The bombshells that they brought in are the two guys, like easily the two hottest guys like in the villa. So like that's what I need, people. Give me the mess. And the villa is stunning. If you guys have not seen, it's like it like tucked into this hillside of the mountains of Hawaii, and there's next to a waterfall. Like literally there's like a little like bench swing thing, and they can look out and feel the water. And I'm like, this is incredible. They have like a huge water slide, and honestly, like hands down the best villa of any of the countries.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Like when they did the like pan shot of it, I was like, oh my gosh, they filmed something else there. I'm blanking on what show it is now, but I know they filmed another reality TV show there. So maybe that's where they were like,
Ooh.
oh, this is where we should film. But
Was it Temptation
it's
Island?
I feel like no, but maybe I can't
I know they
remember.
filmed in Hawaii, but I wasn't sure I wasn't sure if you were saying that specific villa. But
No, that
yeah, I
specific
always.
villa.
Ooh.
Like they had shots from another show, like I saw on Reddit or something, and it was like this is like you could tell. So I was like, oh, but it's a beautiful place to film a show. And like you said, the men that came in, like when we first started out, I was like, ooh, these men not giving what they need to give. But
Mm-hmm.
then they brought in the first two new men, new boys, and I was like, okay, they knew what they were doing because the drama has started.
And because I feel like we have kind of pushed this to be more Bachelor heavy, I'm not going to consider anything I say about Love Island to be a spoiler. So if you have not watched, feel free to skip ahead. We'll put some like show note things. Um, so obviously when the cast is released, I will do my little deep dives in all of them and look at all their like photos on Instagram and all this stuff. And for Christian, he's the one who is from Hawaii actually. He has like this like super like white hair, gives very much like a Justin Bieber but without the extra confidence, I guess, and like the just like kind of dirty white boy look.
Yeah, he's not
But
looking
anyway,
good.
as scrolling, yeah, and on Twitter, people found that he is a Trump supporter, and he did a very good job on his feed because his hat is a black MAGA hat, and you just have to like really be paying attention to see it. And I'm like, oh, but honestly, I thought it was like pretty ballsy for you in 2021 to keep up something like that anyway when you're about to go on a reality TV show where people vote you off.
Right. Like I was like, interesting choices here. And I thought it was interesting that his like when he came in, no one stepped forward for him, and his initial choice was Trina, a black woman. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I hated it. I was like, free my girl. I was so wait, was it Trina or was it no, it was Cash.
No, he picked Trina, and then someone else came in and picked Trina, and then
Oh,
because Cash hadn't stepped forward for anyone, he ended up with Cash.
you are correct. You are correct. And Cash is my absolute favorite. I love her. And again, like for her confidence wise, I was like, I want that confidence to be able to not only rock a shaved head as a woman, as a black woman, and then to put yourself in this environment where it's all about first impressions, first looks of physical attraction, and then kind of like making yourself open up to comments on the internet and doing that. Like, props to you, girl. It's incredible, and I'm loving that she is getting loved on right now.
Okay, so yes, Cash deserves every bit of that energy she's getting. I love that Twitter loves her so much. We're all protective of her. Cash Hive, it's our time.
I also really love the body diversity because this girl, she's got some cake, and a little bit curvy than some contestants we've seen in the past. With Love Island K, I think there's a few like that as well. So I'm very here for it. But yeah, I'm really loving it and the energy. And I think we've actually gotten some decent drama for the first week. When usually with Love Island, I feel like it's not until like a little into week 2 because no one's really into their couples that much. But I'm feeling some spice, and my jaw definitely dropped when Josh, the baseball guy with the light eyes, and honestly, he freaks me out. I get so many bad vibes from him. Uh, Kissed someone who was not his partner, the new girl that came in, Amy, right in front of her, and then was trying to be like, "Oh, haha, just joking, take me back."
It was a lot. It was really wild. What a great first week of Love Island USA.
So wait, so you said you were behind. So this means you didn't watch the Sunday episode?
Yes, I watched Friday and that's the last episode. So I need to watch Sunday, Sunday. So they're not on Monday. Sunday, Tuesday. Yeah, that's right. Because this is coming out tomorrow.
Okay, so never mind. I won't spoil it for you, or maybe do you want me to spoil it? It depends.
I mean, you can. That's fine. I'm gonna watch later.
No, I would still watch them though. So on Sunday it's 2 hours, I guess, to cover from Saturday, perhaps. And Shannon kind of like goes off on Josh and does like a very, very good speech that I wish she had kind of like held up to, but I think that she's gonna have some more moments like that. I wish I could read people like that as quickly in the moment, but I always just kind of get tongue tied. I'm like, well, screw you, and then walk away.
What do you think of Shannon? My initial thought, and like again, I haven't watched Sunday's episode yet, but I thought
Mhm.
she kind of knew the game. Like she seemed like a player who knew the game coming in.
Yeah, I agree. I think she knew the game. How and I think with some of her choices that she makes, that makes me think she does know the game. Uh, but her personality kind of like is not for me. As someone who, like, when the new girl came in, she kind of gave off more of a jealous vibe in the sense that she became like very protective and then kind of like ignored her guy and her couple. And thankfully down the line, she took away that energy and didn't give it to the girl, because I was like, this is not her fault, like that she was put in this situation. Um, but yeah, for me right now, I'm almost like I want to also kind of give a guide to these people watching these shows coming in. And I'm
Mhm.
like, Josh, you know a recoupling's about to happen. So if you're not confident that this girl is going to pick you, this new girl, don't you dare try and do anything to mess with that beforehand. Think
Right.
about it.
Right. He just didn't seem to think like Cash didn't like Christian in the beginning and she was very
Mm-hmm.
open about it, but I think she kind of knew there wasn't going
Mm-hmm.
to be an immediate recoupling. Like she wasn't at risk yet. And so she was like, there
Right.
might be guys coming in. Like she timed it well.
Precisely. And that's what you got to do. And I think Christian also, I think he purposely was with Cash and thinking, like, oh, whatever, like, I'm safe because who's going to go for this girl? Didn't put any time into at least even form a friendship with her. And so it was very easy, like, pickings for Cinco to just kind of like take her. And so now, Christian, I'm like, you got to get to work because you're talking to other people, but I don't see like any conversations with you having like friendships being formed or nothing.
Right. He didn't seem to have a connection with anyone. So I don't think
Yeah.
he's going to last that long, but maybe I'll be surprised.
Let's hope. So in comparison to Love Island UK, I have not watched as many episodes, but I have watched enough to know that there's no chat, there's no banter happening. I'm really very confused by the casting choices that they went with. Not that they're, bad people, but none of them are like, oh, the funny ones, really, the charismatic, the confident ones. Like they're not fitting into any boxes, and that's great from like a diversity stance, but like when you're trying to craft a storyline for a show that comes on every single day, you kind of have to have those personality types mixed in. And it's just not doing that. So I feel like this is probably going to go down as the worst season, even less than season 6, because at least in season 6 you had some like strong couples that are a lot of them still going strong even right now. And I don't know if we're going to get that with this UK season. So that's why I'm saying, like, in comparison of week 1 of Love Island UK to week 1 of Love Island USA, USA blows it out of the water.
Amazing. We love it. Because, you know, I loved the last season of Love Island.
We're doing it. We're still winning.
The first season of Love Island USA did not give me a lot. Didn't do a lot for me. But the second season, I really
barely finished it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed season 2, and I'm hoping season 3 will also be one that, you know, we can watch.
And I almost got scared because I thought the issue with Love Island season 1, if you've watched, is that they were too scared to do anything. And I think, like, in American reality TV that's not on like an MTV setting, they're very much of thinking about like, how am I going to be perceived? Like, I don't want to come off and be rude or step on anyone's toes and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's nice, but like that's not what this show is for. That's not like the drama or anything. And so I think that's why season 2 was so much better, because people were confident enough to like make those moves. And I think that's what the issue is, just like in comparison of why it doesn't do as well. And that's why I think Too Hot to Handle is also good. Like, you have people who go for it. If you're on these shows, you're not looking for like long lasting relationships. If it happens, great, but like don't come into it with this mindset of, oh, I'm gonna find my husband here.
Right.
And have a little fun. It's a free vacation.
Right. Just look at this as a way to have fun and get followers. That's it.
Precisely. I think that's all for my Love Island things. But let's talk about Bachelor in Paradise, because the official cast was released.
Yes.
At least for the first roundups. We know that 5 of Katie's men will also be joining, and I think now after this episode aired yesterday, they will probably reveal a few more, because I'm pretty sure those are all of the ones that are going to be on there. So I'm going to read through them really quick. We have Abigail from, I don't know if I should say what season they're from. Abigail from Matt's season, Brendan from Claire and Tayshia's season, Deandra from Peter's season, Ivan from the Glacia, Jasenia from Matt, Grocery Store Joe from Becca's, Carl from Katie's, Kelsey from Peter, Kenny from Glacia, Mari from Matt, Marissa from Peter's, Natasha from Peter's, Noah from Tayshia, Serena from Matt, Serena P, Tajwan from Colton season, Tammy from Peter's season, Victoria Larson, Queen Victoria from Matt's season, and Victoria P from Peter's season. And more to come. Some strong. I think what's interesting is that usually with Bachelor in Paradise, you have your strong top 4s from the previous season on there. And with Peter's season, you have Kelsey, and that's it. There's no Maddie, there's no Hannah Ann, there's no Victoria F. And I don't know if their presence will be felt, like their lack of presence will be felt, in the sense that like that's the people who usually people like go to first. So I wonder if we're gonna have that type of moment. Let's hope, because I feel like that's where the drama comes.
I kind of feel like Abigail might be like the chased girl this season, at least of our initial cast, because like you said, we normally have someone that on first stand is like the hot commodity. I feel like that could be Abigail. Right. But yeah, we have a lot of people that were sent home that didn't have long Bachelor or Bachelorette storylines, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I kind of like it from the sense that it's like you kind of know them, but it's not too much of like these formed connections that have happened outside, so it will feel more authentic, even though like we know it's TV, so there's a little bit of poking and prodding in there, but yeah, I think it's going to be some good stuff, and I've heard a lot of tea already happening, so I'm ready to see it unfold.
I'm excited. August 16th, guys, mark your calendars.
And finally, I just finished watching the trailer. I sent it to you last night, and I didn't get to watch it. But FBoy Island.
Okay, I didn't have good at strong
it's
enough
officially
Wi-Fi
coming
to watch
to HBO Max.
Yes, but I am so excited about watching this. Cannot wait.
So I will link the trailer in the show notes as well. But basically, it's a setup where there's like I don't know how many women. I forgot the number of women, maybe 6 or 12. But then for men, there's 12. Like good guys and 12 f boys on this island. But not even the audience knows who is who, and it's up to the women to kind of like decide. But then there's also money on the line. Like you can also win $100,000 at the end of the summer. Um, and I'm just like, if you ever watched 30 Rock, they used to like have these little cutaway scenes to TV shows that they would randomly script, and one of them was like MILF Island, or just like a bunch of like very crazy stuff that you're like, oh my god, who would even do this? And that's what this show, the vibes that it gives me. It sounds like a complete mess, but it's exactly the type of mess that I live for.
Yeah, I cannot wait to watch it. I feel like I will thoroughly enjoy this show. We also have to talk about the fact that Love is Blind is having a second reunion. I mean, I don't know what else
Yeah,
there's to talk about
to me,
with it, but yeah, they're having a second reunion. Wanted to share that.
I just feel like it's kind of a weird thing for them to do because I'm like, we already got this. Truly nothing has changed within that time. I mean, I don't keep up with Amber and Barnett, but I know Lauren and Cameron just bought a house, so like there's that new news. But other than that, they're just like doing their thing, showing their products, living their lives. Just give us season two. Like, don't give us another reunion. That's not necessarily what we want right now.
Right. I'm hopeful that them announcing they're going to have this means they're going to announce season 2 is coming. Like they've already filmed it and already.
Yeah, at the end. Mm-hmm.
Fingers crossed for
Because I
that
remember
one.
at the end of season one, they already put up information saying that they were casting in Chicago. So I'm like, has it really been, almost like two
Right. So
years
I feel
now at
like they
this
should
point
already have it
where,
filmed.
yeah, it's a very low budget production. You put them in an airplane hangar and and get stuff done. So come on, guys.
We're waiting.
Yeah. So this will be a wonderful summer for reality TV per usual. I also shared about Real Housewives of Potomac starting back up. So when I said that my head it's being turned constantly from these shows, it really is. But as always, would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to DM us and chat about it because we will be watching.
Yes. And we always want to hear what you guys are watching if we're missing something. So if there's a show
Mm-hmm.
we're missing that we need to watch, let us know. We want to know.
Please let us know. Um, Really, that's it for me for news because honestly, I didn't see anything else that was like less than like a line of information, like nothing to discuss. So I'm happy to jump right into our episode of The Bachelorette this week.
It was a good one. We had a big cut. 5 men went home this week. But let's start over. So we start the episode, and Katie is meeting with Caitlin and Tayshia, and she says, I have a challenge idea. And
Mm.
this just seemed very low budget to me, right? Because I'm like, could you not take them on an actual group date? But she's like talking about, she's like, I know that tensions are high and, they might want to have friendly handshakes with themselves, but I want them to not masturbate for a week. And Tayshia and Caitlin are like, okay. And she's like, yeah. So Caitlin goes to tell the men this, and she walks into the house laughing, and the guys are like, what's going on? She comes in, she's like, you might need some self-care. You might be pleasuring yourself, but no more. We're doing whoa-whoa. Week off, back off. And it was just like uncomfortable, not really as funny as I think they wanted it to be. We had like 5 whole minutes of Connor B giving us different like ways to say it. Like he's like, yes, the man won't be free. I won't be doing the low 5. All these different things. And I was like, okay, we get it. We get it.
Yeah, they just tried really too hard here. And also it didn't really make sense for the branding of the show. Like I know maybe they were trying to do like the extremes of both, but I'm like, Katie literally came onto the show with a dildo. So what like how does this make sense? This is does not scream sex positivity to me.
Right. I was just very confused about the whole thinking behind like why they wanted to do it, because it didn't seem like something Katie herself thought of. It seemed like something she was put up to. And then I
Mhm.
was like, the storyline is already stale. I'm tired. I'm tired of
Yeah,
it.
it was
But
very odd. I
yes.
also feel like Caitlyn tweeted and she said, "Oh, I forgot that people don't have a sense of humor." And I'm like, it's not that we don't have a sense of humor. It's just like it wasn't funny.
Yeah, it was just like it was like dated humor. I felt like like I was like, this
Mhm.
is the kind of joke you would laugh about in middle school, but like their target audience is not 11-year-olds. So we were all like, okay. And
Yeah.
but she does drop off the first date card. It's for a one-on-one for our boy Justin. So excited for him, Mr. Faces.
Mr. Eyebrows.
Yes. So as he's getting ready, we see some action in the house. Hunter is talking to Greg, and he says, we find out that he's a super fan of the show, which we didn't really know before. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I was worried you were going to get the one-on-one because, and Greg's like, can that happen since I already have him? He's like, yeah, that happens sometimes if the person's a favorite. And I think you are. Here's who my top four is. I think it's, and Hunter says he thinks his top four is Greg, Hunter, and Connor B. He's like, I think we're all favorites. And Greg's like, okay. Greg is like very uninterested in the conversation. We
Mhm.
see an ITM of him, and he's like, Hunter, he kind of explains, he's like, Hunter's a super fan. He seems calculated to me. I'm not really sure why he's telling me this, but whatever.
And just like pause for a moment. Let's talk about that. So, Hunter, sweet Hunter, because I felt myself defending Hunter this entire episode and continuing to defend Hunter because I truly don't think he's a bad person at all. I don't like when people get villain edits simply just by how they use the music in the background as a person speaks. Because I'm like, what has he really said that's like, oh my God, how dare you say that? And I think we've got nothing. With Hunter, his mistake was saying it out loud. Obviously, people are always going to think, who is their competition in here? Who are they up against? Um, it's okay to be a super fan. Damar was a super fan last season with the Tasha season. Like people would go and ask him stuff all the time, like, "Oh, has this been done before?" Like when they switched out leads, and we know Katie herself is a super fan. Like she DM'd Caitlin Bristow on her first day of her first episode premiering and said, like, keep your head up and all this stuff, and then reshared that screenshot when she was starting her season.
Right.
So there's nothing against being a super fan. You can do it. Sure, it might look creepy and some sorts of like editing aspects because they can do that to you. Um, but I honestly feel like, yeah, you should know what's going on before you go on this show. That's why you guys are messing up like you are because you think you can go and tattle on people without any repercussions. Hunter
Right.
knows that like that's not the way to do it, and that's why he's saying no, don't.
Exactly. I feel like having understanding how the show works is something that is to your advantage. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's calculated, but I'm like, you should know what you're getting into.
Right. It's a reality TV show where they will do whatever they can to manipulate you into looking to whatever version they want. And of course, while it's not working for Hunter right now because he's saying all this out loud, he shouldn't be. Um, it's better to kind of have that understanding so you know what to avoid. I mean, we also saw that with Kaylin and Cassie on Colton's season, where I don't know if they actually caught the audio of them talking about it out loud or if other people just heard them, where they're
Yes.
like, oh, if we don't, if we're not chosen, then I want you to be the Bachelorette, and they said that about each other, and that became a big storyline because they were talking about it. When it's like, obviously, Kaylin probably would have been the Bachelorette if she wasn't caught having that storyline. She had a
Right.
great arc. She was gorgeous. People loved her opening up about her own past. And if it wasn't for that, I think she would have really had it in the bag. So you can't talk about those strategies on the show, but definitely have them before going in there because if not, you'll flounder.
Right. Just don't say it out loud. So then
Mm-hmm.
we go to the one-on-one date. Franco is back again this week because, he's been quarantined in the bubble so he could stay. And he is going to be photographing Katie and Justin's wedding. So again, another recycled date. from a past season, like really last season.
Mm-hmm.
Katie's going to put on her wedding dress. They're going to write vows to each other. I couldn't help but to think how weird it would be to be in the situation. You know, like obviously the Bachelorette, the Bachelor world is going to have you on this accelerated relationship path. But to be writing your vows to someone you barely know, and you know, like they're like telling Justin how to do it, and they're like, yeah, just say how you really feel about her and what you love about her. I'm like, he barely knows her.
Right. What were your thoughts of Justin getting this date as well? Were you shocked when he got it?
Yes. It was not, I mean, from the previews, I knew it was going to be him, but he is not who
Mm-hmm.
I expected to go on a one-on-one this week. And then for this date to be the one where they really have not had one-on-one conversations, even at like cocktail parties and like after group dates where they've like really bonded, I was like, it's kind of weird that she chose him for this date. Um,
Yeah. I just felt like something that should have been someone who they could have had like more of an emotional connection. Like when it happened with Zach last season, I think we were also kind of confused. It happened a little earlier on, but I think you can still kind of get those vibes from someone of who is able to whatever. And I also feel like that was producer led of you should pick Zach because the producers know that they had both been divorced, and so I think they kind of wanted to like play into that. Um, so I'm not really sure why Justin was the choice here. It didn't really make sense. I felt uncomfortable the whole time. It was weird that he was getting emotional with her walking with the little dress and stuff. I was like,
he looked like
do
he
you
was
really
about to
like
start crying. Yeah,
her?
I was like,
Yeah,
wow, I guess he really has feelings for her, even though he doesn't really know her at all.
at all.
Um, so back at the house, James is now talking to Brendan and Aaron about Hunter being a super fan. They're all wondering if he's there for the right reasons. We also get the group date card. So men on the group date are going to be Hunter, Andrew S., Aaron, Brendan, Blake, James, Trey, Michael A., Mike P., and Greg, which is
Mhm.
going to leave Connor B for the second one-on-one date. Then we go back to dinner with Katie and Justin. And I am so interested to hear your thoughts. I thought it was very strange. Katie sits down and they're talking about the day and the wedding stuff. And Katie says, you know, it was very difficult for her because she was thinking about how her dad has passed and he won't be there to walk her down the aisle or give his like approval to someone that wants to propose to her. And Justin's nodding and listening. And then she says, but what's interesting is when my dad was passing, my mom told me that he's not my biological dad. And so Katie starts talking about how like she really struggled because she wanted to create a relationship with this man, but starting a relationship with him right after her dad passed, you know, made her think about how her dad wasn't there and it was just a lot. And I have a note here and it just says, is Justin supposed to be her therapist? The fuck? Because she's really just like telling her whole life story, which is great to open up to someone, but it just felt like a weird, the timing didn't feel right for her to share that. I don't know what your thought, what was your take?
Yeah, so for me, I was trying to pinpoint why do I feel so weird about it because it's like this is not anything new of there being this emotional vomit on these dates. However, I realize the issue is because it's usually from the cast, like the contestants themselves. So it's weird when it's the lead kind of putting that on them. And I think the reason why perhaps she's being pushed to do this or feels like she has to do this is because we don't know anything about her. She was 11th place on Matt's season. So there's no way for us to know about, what how the passing of her father really affected her life, how about her past traumas and stuff that happened to her on that New Year's Eve incident, or the fact that her father that she thought was her father is not her biological father. We don't know any of that because we didn't have any of those like intimate moments really on that season. There was not a paradise arc for her. We were just kind of thrown this woman who we thought was going to be this funny, charismatic lead, and I guess they've really just kind of watered her down, or maybe I hyped her up too much, and for that, I apologize. But I was also very uncomfortable listening to this because it felt like these dates are a chance for us to get to know the men. And so by her kind of like inserting it in these situations, and I get like, these are real dates happening, so it's like she needs to share this with them. It felt weird that that's really the only kind of takeaways that we got from this date was more stuff about her and less about, the men on here, especially a Black man
Right.
that,
I,
we would love to learn and more and see more, and not just being like your funny facials cut to on this show.
exactly. I felt like we didn't learn anything about Justin. So we're kind of in that same pattern of like, we didn't learn a lot about Katie on Matt's season. And I'm like, and now Justin, we're like not really getting to learn a lot about him as a person on her season, because I think the only things I have that I know about him is that he paints and that he has the great facial expressions. And that's, we're not going to get like a dynamic story arc for him at this point in time. But he does get the rose. She's very grateful that he listened, gives him the rose, and that's their date. So then we go to the group date, and the note says something about kings, and she's a queen, she's looking for a king. The guys are thinking it's going to be some type of competition style thing, and she takes them inside, and there are two of RuPaul's All-Star Drag Race winners or contestants there. And it was so cute because Michael A says, if it's drag day, I'm going all the way. And then you cut to Blake, who's always just like funny, but he's funny because he's weird. He was like, I've never been to a drag show before, so I don't know if I should be checking them out or not. But I am.
And I'm like, okay, why was that your initial thought process?
Interesting, but thank you. So the queens tell the guys that they will be throwing shade and roasting each other, and they kind of split them up to start, writing these things. They seem lost, as they're getting ready. We're like, okay, they're not ready for this. We do see a scene where they talk to Trey, and Trey says, they ask Trey, they're like, who's not here? Who's going to get roasted the most? And he says, Hunter. And then the queen goes and talks to Hunter and is like, are you ready for this? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, I am. And he's like, and the queen asks, they say, do you love Katie? And Hunter says to her, like, I don't feel comfortable saying that yet. I don't want to cheapen our relationship. We're not at that point. And the queen's like, okay. So we start off the roast. James goes first, and he's horrible. He says, I have a big heart, and everyone else is competing for second place. And the queens kind of boo him a little bit. And then the guys start roasting Hunter eventually. So someone says, he's a super fan. He has this top 4 list. Hunter says, I don't have a top 4 list. Says he's falling for Katie after saying, like, I wouldn't say that because it would cheapen our relationship. So Katie tells the queens afterwards, after the men leave, like, it is kind of interesting that the men had all these things to say about Hunter because I feel like I have a good connection with him, and it's just surprising to me. So she says she has questions at dinner. We do have some all-stars. So Andrew S. says that he feels very confident in them. Like, their conversation at the after party is very easygoing. They are joking back and forth, smiling. Okay, so Andrew S. tells Katie that he feels super confident in their relationship. He's not worried about anyone else. He doesn't bring up Hunter. Greg comes and says, like, I can't really read you. And so Katie reassures him and says, like, I'm falling for you. And then we kind of get into the men that want to talk about Hunter. What did you think about Hunter on the date and before we get into, like, what the men were saying about him?
So for me, again, I feel like the issue was how the love situation before and then when he was in front of Katie. But what, I don't know, like Shea Coulee or Money Exchange asked him was, are you in love with Katie? He said no, because that's fair. And then on the date, he said he was falling in love. And that's a very different thing, or falling, And I feel like, one, he was also being attacked a bunch and just kind of trying to find a way to take it off and soften it. I feel like that was like really the only thing that he could have done in that moment as a self-preservation. I just feel like, in terms of a roast thing, like, stuff should be funny again, and it wasn't funny. I would actually hate to be on a date like this because there's a very fine line, and I could see myself crossing that line often of being like, well, damn, she's just a bitch, versus being like just like a shady thing. and it didn't work out well. The date kind of felt more of like a presidential debate towards the end versus like a shade off essentially. So I don't know, maybe it doesn't work with men, but maybe it'd be too intense with women. I don't know. Regardless, this was not a good date for me. I thought it was great to have the drag queens, and I hope they do something again with them in the future. Perhaps like a dress up date, like a walk a mile in my shoes type of thing, but not this.
Yeah, I felt like the men were not ready to prepare, like, to participate in this shade off. Like you said, it very much felt presidential debate. People were like, "This is why I'm the right man for you." Like, we didn't need it. It didn't add anything.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so back at the dinner date, James comes in, Boxman comes in, and he tells Katie, like, "I need to tell you that Hunter's not here for the right reasons." Then we get Blake coming in the middle of all of this chaos, and he's just like, "I'm great, but I can't do this whoa thing anymore." So that storyline, this is kind of the end of it. But he's like, "I'm struggling." Katie's like, "Should I kiss you? Should I not kiss you?" And he's like, "No, you can kiss me." Um, so Blake's just there randomly. And then we see that Trey, James tells Katie to watch out. Trey tells Katie that Hunter told one of the queens that he's not in love with her, like you were just giving the breakdown of.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron says that Hunter is lying. And so Katie comes, pulls in Hunter, and is like, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" She doesn't really ask him any direct questions. She's just kind of like, "Hey, the guys are talking about you." And he's like, "Yeah, I know." Which he said he knew he was going to get roasted. He knew the guys were talking about him. And he's like, "But, I care about you. I see our connection." And she's like, "Okay." Katie gets sick. So she walks off and actually like gets sick, throws up. And then comes back to the guys and sits down and says, "I'm really not feeling well. I'm going to call this a night. I'm not going to give out the group date rose tonight either." The guys are like, "Oh, okay."
Mm-hmm.
So then we fast forward to the next day.
For
Thoughts?
me, I was just like, it's funny that they were upset. They're like, "Oh, James made it," or not James, that Hunter's made it all about himself. Like it could have been a night, and I'm like, no, you guys made it this way.
Right.
Like you guys didn't have to do any of this. I just get so annoyed, especially when it's people who have not had one-on-one dates with her. I'm like, why would you waste this time? You know how close you are to the ends now, with how many are left of you. Like, why would you waste this time talking about some other guy? Like, if this was outside of this bubble, if you were on a date with a girl, would you waste your time talking about, someone else? Or would you just focus on you and your relationship?
Right. Especially in that
That's why
crucial,
Andrew
like,
S. and Greg are winning right now.
exactly. That's why, like, in that, you really wouldn't do it in like that second or third date period where it's like you're kind of trying to decide, do I want to keep seeing this person or not? If they're talking about things that are like not even relevant to you, you'd be like, okay, they are not interested, and I'm going to move on. So it did seem like the men did not think it through, you know?
Right. It's very annoying to me, and I hate that, like, seeing that all the time, because I just want to know, like, what's their thought process of why they think that's a good thing. Because again, if Hunter was doing something intense, don't put it past his producers. Obviously, they would show it. He's not a front runner, as we see. If he was a front runner, they wouldn't show it because they're trying to craft like a love story thing, but they're not. So if he was doing something rude or mean, they would show it on TV. And they haven't done that. So it means that there's no reason for you guys to be trying to play Survivor every week, vote people off the island. You know, Aaron can always tone it down more. I have no idea. Like, does he have an off switch?
No,
God, let's hope so, because it's so much.
he is so much. So, um, we'll come back to these men, but next we see Katie standing in the sunshine in her bikini. She's going on her one-on-one date with Connor B, Mr. Catman, and they're doing a double date with Caitlin and Jason, which is cute. They're going to play games. They're going to grill out. Mostly Caitlin and Jason are cute, but it's
Right.
fine. It's fine. So,
Oh man.
but Caitlin does a voiceover, and she says, "I'm so excited for Katie." And says, "I know she's looking for this like magic kiss from Connor B." And so it's like, oh, is Connor B a bad kisser? Which you have talked about before on the pod, is that you're like, she does not want to kiss him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sad because Connor seems so excited to be there. And, he's like, how do you want your hot dog? Like, very caring. Um, and then at the end of the day portion of the date, they sit down, he leans over and he kisses her. And I was like, perhaps this was the magic kiss. Perhaps. But I should have known. It was not.
They were trying to make it look like it was.
They were playing the happy music and everything. So I was like, oh, finally.
Yep.
So then next thing we see is Connor B getting ready for dinner. He's dressed in a nice suit. And then he's like, I'm so optimistic. I'm so happy. I had a great day. And then we cut to Katie, who's in her room in sweats, crying a little bit, head in her hands. And as soon as you see it, you're like, okay, so the kiss was not magic.
Mm-hmm. It was not.
So she walks to Connor's room. She's sniffling. She's crying. She knocks. Connor so sweetly opens the door and is like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? Come here, blah, blah, blah. They sit down and she's like worked up. And he says to her, he says, I know where this is going. Just breathe. It's okay. And my heart broke, Tomi. Not because I'm like such a Connor B fan, but just he was so kind to her in this moment of knowing like she was going to let him go and she wasn't feeling it. And he was just like still so worried about her.
Yeah, he was just comforting her like through the breakup. I'm like, ooh. I felt so awkward watching all of it, especially like thinking he's like, oh, what's wrong when she first came in. I was like, oh.
Yeah, at first he doesn't realize and you're like, oh no. But I mean, she's crying. He's literally like wiping the tears off her face and like rubbing her back. And, he's like, well, what's wrong? And she's like, I just felt like our kiss was missing something. And I was so excited about you, but I just don't think this is it. And he's like, okay, I understand. He's like, this is really hard, but like, I understand. So he goes back to the house where the guys are to say goodbye to them. And I feel like the guys' reaction was so telling because they are all so upset. They're almost crying. They're hugging him. They're like, man, don't let this get you down. Keep your head up. Like, you're a great guy. I love you. I'm like,
even Aaron.
Yes, who like if he could throw him under the bus, he would. So I'm like, Connor must be a great guy. Connor must have not done anything in his time there. So Connor B is our first man eliminated this week. That's our first man.
Yeah, what was your thoughts on this elimination? Because she has said that this was, at least so far, which I guess makes sense, this was her hardest elimination that she's done. And so I'm like, did she just feel awful because, or confused of how she could feel so strongly on night one and then to like not feel anything? I'm just kind of wondering how it was that difficult for her when for me, I have seen that like there's really nothing there since then. And just to kind of like keep it moving.
Yeah, I think maybe she was holding on to that feeling from the first night of being so excited when he was in the cat costume and all of that stuff where she was like, the spark's going to come back. And maybe she thought, okay, I just need to keep him one more week and the spark will come back. And then weeks progressed and it did not.
Yeah.
So maybe that was kind of hard for her to let go of. She
and
definitely seemed wrecked.
I think perhaps it kind of like rocked her confidence in her decision making because I think that's how she was with Greg. Like she felt something very strong with Greg on the first night, obviously gave him the first date, had a good thing. So maybe she's thinking if this could happen with Connor, maybe this is something that can happen down the line with Greg as well.
Perhaps. She definitely seems like she's questioning herself a little bit now. We finally see our boombox scene. She's still in her room crying after she lets Connor go. Blake shows up outside of her window. He's got the boombox. He's playing a country music song. And she hears it, comes over to the window. She's like very happy to see him, tells him to come upstairs. And, he just tells her, I know this had to be hard and I was thinking about you and relationships are about comforting each other when you're upset. And so I wanted to come here and just check in on you. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was very reminiscent of the Jed Hannah episode where I don't know if it was the same episode as the Mr. Right competition that they did, and then he like came to her window like singing the song. but it was like a good callback to that moment. And then Blake did that with, it's the same song from their one-on-one date that he comes and plays on the little boombox. Um, and I guess I was about to say maybe Blake knows that he can do this little like secret knock knock thing and like go and see her, and the other contestants don't because he's been on the show before, and obviously it happened a lot on that season. But Jet definitely hadn't been on the show before, so I'm wondering like why there haven't been little more moments to make something like special happen with Katie again. I don't know if it's just a chemistry thing. I don't know if it's like he's a producer favorite, but it feels like everything at this point, it's like it's truly just like a Greg, Blake, Andrew S game to lose because they're like leagues ahead of
Right.
everyone else. And right now, Blake, like honestly, he's taken off because to do something like this, especially knowing that it's on a time when she's feeling so down and vulnerable, like this is a perfect time for him to show up and comfort her.
Yes, for sure. So I caught that too, and I was like, I wonder if a producer was like, you should go check on her. Kind of like last Bachelorette season when Claire was really upset because Yosef told her, like, I would never want my daughter to be like you. And then Dale immediately shows up and is like, I can't believe
Right.
you said that to you. It seemed like the timing was so good that you were like, a producer sent him. Kind of felt like that to me.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the next evening, Katie comes into the cocktail party. She says, time isn't going to change how I feel. There's not going to be a cocktail party. We're just going straight to the rose ceremony. I know what I want to do. We see that there's 6 roses, which means 4 more men will go home. But then she says she knows what she wants to do. But then she says, Hunter, he comes down and she says, can I talk to you? So they leave the room. She doesn't really ask any clarifying questions. She's just like, I'm concerned because men were talking about you. And he's like, okay.
And
Right? Like,
like,
that's kind of where it is. Yeah. And
I
so,
think for me, she knows about a good TV moment. She knows about a good like rose ceremony, mic drop. Uh, because yeah, if you said, "Oh, I know exactly what I'm gonna do," and this is why I have such a short amount of roses, then there's no need for you to pull him out to the side and do something like that.
right. It just kind of seemed, and even like Aaron said it, he was like, I thought she said she knew what she was doing, but now she's calling Hunter. And I was like, oh, Aaron's turning on her. This isn't good.
I
So,
mean,
yeah, expected. Aaron turns on everybody. But
right.
she sends Hunter back into the rose ceremony without a rose. And then she comes back and she says, I needed to clarify some things. And she says, I don't have time for the drama or to play catch up with any other relationships. I either feel something or I don't. So in order, she calls up Blake, which I thought was very telling. He got the first rose after he comforted her. Then Andrew S. Then Greg. Then Michael A. Then Mike P. And the final rose of the evening goes to Brendan, who I still am like, who is this man? But I was surprised. So I was surprised by that because of the men remaining, we've seen more of her with some of the other guys than with Brendan. So I was like, they're hiding him. They must be.
That's what I was for sure. I was for sure it was going to be Hunter. Once I found out that 5 men went home, I was like, oh, okay, so it's going to be, Hunter, both Mikes, Andrew S., Greg, and Blake as your people left.
Brendan.
Because why haven't we seen a single thing? Like, how's this man like just making it this entire time?
Right.
And we've seen nothing.
Like, he is so hidden. Like, we have not seen any interactions where I'm like, what is going on? So the men that are going home are Hunter, Trey, James, and Aaron. Just what were your thoughts? You kind of gave some of like you're like confused about the Brendan thing, but what did you think?
Yeah, it felt like the good time for those men to go home. I think that she's very clear on who her top 4 are at this point, and I think anything else is again some like producer tactic because we've also learned that Brendan is good friends with Blake outside of this show. Like they've met beforehand, they play hockey together in Canada. And they haven't shown that at all of like them knowing each other, not even like oh hey, this is kind of weird, like whatever. And so my thought process is that they're also starting a Bachelor in Paradise Canada or international. I'm not really sure. I think it's Canada. And I think
Yeah.
they're trying to push him along as far as possible to get the screen time so that they can use him as another jumping off point on that show. Because I didn't see him on cast things. I think he'll end up there. I don't think he's going to be top four, especially because we have not seen a freaking thing from him. I'd never even seen him in promos. That's why I was so confused. Uh, but I think everyone else who went home definitely needs to go home.
And that's why you were saying you're like they're giving him screen time so he can be in Bachelor in Paradise Canada, but I'm like, are they giving him screen time?
Okay, yeah, you're right about that. They're making him at least go far enough. You're so right. Yeah. There's no screen time, but I guess at least so you can be like, oh, it's not just this random person. It's the guy who ended up getting
Top
sixth or
7,
something.
yeah.
Like a high. You're right. Some type of higher ranking. Because that's. I mean, I'm grasping at straws, people, because that's the that's the only
I'm
thing I
really
can come up
trying to
with for
think of what
how
we've seen of
we've
him,
somehow made it this far with him.
and I cannot think of anything. I'm like, I don't know. I know he's a firefighter. I know he's Canadian. I know that he knows Blake from home, not from the
Yeah.
show. I just happen to know that. So I'm like, this is not going well. We do see a preview for next week, and it looks like Greg is going to get a one-on-one date, perhaps. We see them kissing in the rain, and we see Mike P and her on what looks like a one-on-one date, and then we see the men on the group date walking up to her. It looks like it's Greg, Michael A., Brendan, and Blake. So, yeah, that's this week of the
Which
Bachelorette.
at that point, yeah, which at this point I think that Brendan has to go home next week because I think this is the last round of one-on-one dates. And so if you don't get it, then yeah. So it'll be like if she gives it to Mike P, which I don't think she will because again, I just don't think how does that work? Just very, very different background stuff and approaches to life. So it'll be kind of where it goes from there. Who will be that fourth person that she puts in there?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it could be Michael A., but we've kind of seen some things that hint maybe he's going to go home to his child. So we don't know the timing of that yet, but it should be good.
Should be good. I am at this point I'm ready to like just get to the end here because it's becoming a chore to watch this show right now in these bubble seasons. I put a little tweet roundup on our Instagram of thoughts of the season, and the final one was like, let's all make sure to go get our freaking vaccinations so we don't have to do any more of these dates in the woods. And that's definitely how I feel. I'm over it. I want some big production things. I don't understand why other shows can film in Hawaii for a month with more people, more production stuff of making your villas look like, designing and repaying all of that stuff versus a very set cast, a very set amount of producers coming in. Just does not make sense to me why they would pick this location and then I don't know. I'm like, you could be going hiking, you could do the ATVs, you could do like a zip line, a rock wall, like nothing. Just this. This is all we get. It's painful to watch.
Right. They really said bare minimum on this season. So.
But we will be getting Tayshia and Caitlyn again for another season of hosting. Now I don't know if that was officially confirmed by the show, but Reality Steve did report that. And you know what? I do love their little group chat moments that they have, a little girl gang. I think it's very much appreciated by anyone who's in that lead position. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do for The Bachelor.
Yes, that will be interesting because I would assume they could, but I would assume they would not be hosting The Bachelor. Would they bring in an old lead or what? But yeah, that will be really interesting. I'm excited to see them with Michelle. Yeah, just ready for Michelle's season, really, and Paradise.
Right. Yeah, I think we're at that point. I'm honestly not even like too worked up about who she chooses because they're both giving me like I do think she has the best chemistry with Blake, hands down. Greg does look like a little sad boy all the time with his eyes, and it's like a little too much for me. But I don't know. Maybe there may be some good that comes out of this, but I think I've learned my lesson of hyping up white women whose only, his only thing is like, woo, pro sex. Like, it was really bare minimum, and I played myself, so apologies. Because I'm out here like clicking and watching this show every week, and I'm like, it's so dry. It is so dry.
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch live, and so I was catching up before we filmed this, and I was like, this is dragging a little bit. And even with 5 men going home, because I was like, 5 men are going home. This is going to be
Yes.
a hot episode. And I at the end of the episode, I was like, huh, not really.
They said it was a shocking dumping.
There's nothing shocking to me.
Nothing. It was, I mean, if they didn't say that, I would have guessed probably a little bit more correctly, honestly, because of the way that they were filming Hunter. I've been like, okay, yeah, they're probably going to send him home.
Right.
But I thought the shock would have been keeping him. Of like, ooh, the villain is going to be around, So
Right.
that's why I was like, oh, so it's just normal.
And it's kind of a quiet exit for Aaron, too, because, he loves to talk about everyone, and it's just like, I don't know, it felt anticlimactic. It's just like, okay, Aaron's time here is done. Bye.
Yeah, I think last episode's was, I thought it was going to give us a lot more for the rest of the season, and it just hasn't been doing that. So, I think we'll see beginning of Michelle's season, and it'll time will tell how long I keep up with this franchise, because I'm rooting for you guys, but you make it so freaking hard.
Yes, for sure. Did you want to read a review?
What a great question. I actually had that thought, and I was like, crap, we forgot to do it again. But sure, I think that would be a lovely time. Here we go. We have Here for It. I don't think I've read this one. Here for It. I'm usually more of the science, medicine, psychology podcast type. No, I think I did.
Okay, maybe no review this week.
Yeah, no review.
Okay.
We'll skip that. I'll cut that out.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me, do you have a rose of the week or a villain of the week?
I think I'm going to go with Rose of the Week. This is interesting that you said that, because now I'm like, oh, what are you about to bring? Some spice to the table. So I guess I'll go first. Zaila Avant-Garde. If you don't know the name, get into the name. Just imagine the power you would have if you had a name like that. She is a 14-year-old girl who has just become the first African American to win the national champion in the spelling bee in the 96-year history of this competition. Flawless, amazing, iconic. I love her. It was very funny. Taraji P. Henson shared her photo on Instagram and thought her name was the name that she was the word that was the last one that she spelled, which was like Maria. And she was like, yes, Maria! Queen, we love you!
The energy was right.
The energy was right. She's got this. She's got the spirit. But something that I also loved about her is that she's obviously hella intelligent, but this is just a side gig for her. She's only been doing this for like 2 years. What she's really into is basketball, and she has 3 Guinness World Records for doing basketball things, and I wrote them down. So she has the most simultaneous basketballs dribbled, which was 6 basketballs for 30 seconds, the most basketball bounces, which was 307 in 30 seconds, and the most bounce juggles in 1 minute, using 255 using 4 basketballs. Also in a Steph Curry commercial a couple years ago because of her skills. So she's like out here hooping at like 8th grade, 9th grade stuff. And she's like, oh yeah, that's something I do for fun, but basketball is my real passion. Gagged. These poor people up against her, like studying here every day, all day, and she's like, oh, this was cute. So anyway.
Yes, I love her. A young queen in the making, for sure.
For sure. Can't wait to see what she does next.
Yeah, can't wait. I'm so excited for her. So happy for her. My rose of the week is going to go to TikTok
Oh God.
because one of our TikTok musicians took City Girls Twerkulator and mashed it up with Michael Jackson's PYT. I don't know if you've heard this yet.
I have not.
It is fire. Like I was having an introvert moment where I'd like used all of my social battery yesterday. And I just went up to my room and closed the door and I was like laying there and I was like, I just need to hear Twerkulator Pretty Young Thing. And I'm back. I'm recharged. It's brought the energy I needed. I will send it to you so you can put it in the show notes, but it is that mashup.
Oh my God. Incredible. I love that for you. So are you saying it's Song of
Thank
the
you.
Summer?
It it might be for me. It might be for me.
Oh. Stay tuned. Okay, the link will be in
Stay
the show
tuned.
notes for sure. You can vote on it.
Yep.
That's a lot better. When you said the villain thing, I was like, oh, where are we going this week? So I will accept that.
Thank you.
Great. Well, that's it for me.
And that is it for me, friends. Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe, review, check us out on your favorite podcast listening platform. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.